Hello, a very good morning. Welcome along to Ireland AM on Virgin Media 1 and Virgin Media Play.
It's Wednesday, the 20th of November, and as we discovered this morning, you're going to have to get up a little bit early to defrost those cars, and please do be careful out on the roads. If you're there, there's a status yellow, low temperature and ice warning that's in effect until 10 a.m. this morning. We're out with the water.
Bloody freezing this morning, so yes, do take care out on the road. Yeah. Here's what we have in store for you this morning.
We're less than 10 days away from the general election. We're going to be getting the latest on that and everything else that's coming out from the news at 7:15.
President Biden agreed to give Ukraine anti-personnel landmines and has temporarily closed their embassy in Kyiv due to a significant threat of an attack. We're going to have the latest on the conflict in Ukraine at 7:35.
And at 7:45, we're discussing overly competitive parents. Is that you? Did you want to do this? Is that it? No. And the impact it can have on children playing sport.
Let us know what you think. If your kids, what is it like on the sideline? Are they very shouty parents? 0896 111 111.
We've got a surprise for you this morning, though. Like a really special guest. It's the Winter Man from Del Monte.
He looks good.
In the studio right now. Where's the hat?
The Winter Man from Del Monte. There you go.
You look so cosy.
Very cosy.
Yeah.
Needed something warm this morning. Now, our pal Catherine Layton is going to be in later on. She's going to chat about how being diagnosed with the lung condition COPD has impacted her life. Plus, at 8:15, funny man Jarlath Regan chats about midlife moments that lead to comedy gold. And we meet the self-proclaimed gamer granny who's become the queen of Fortnite. So, great show lined up.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media 1.
A cold day today with frost and icy stretches on untreated surfaces this morning, lingering in some spots throughout the day. Dry with sunshine for many, but scattered showers of sleet and snow will continue in the north and northwest. Turning cloudier in the afternoon with a spell of heavy rain moving into the west and southwest, turning to hail, sleet and snow at times as it spreads inland. Afternoon highs of just 3 to 6 degrees in light northwesterly or variable winds. Rain will spread across the southern half of the country tonight, turning to sleet and snow at times away from coasts and with some accumulations possible. Further north, it'll be mostly dry with scattered wintry showers.
You need to be chilled to handle Irish weather. That's why Chill sponsor weather updates on Virgin Media 1.
Now, Virgin Media is turning Black Friday red, and to celebrate, they've given us a fantastic prize that we're giving away all this week.
Yes, they really have. You could win a 4K smart television, an Xbox, and a Samsung Galaxy phone every day this week.
All of it. All of it could be yours. To be in with a chance to win, you can get all of those. You've got to tell us about your best or indeed worst gifts that you have given or received, and if you want to share a picture of what those gifts are, we would absolutely love it. Yeah. We thought we'd help some people out by giving them examples of bad gifts.
Okay, what are they?
Well, Tommy, this is your area.
I don't know. I give great gifts.
What did you get, Lucy?
Looking forward to seeing what you have or what you received.
It could be
let us know.
A birthday gift, a Christmas gift. Coming up to Christmas, obviously people have probably got the old socks for the third year running or whatever
Hoovers.
like that.
I have lots of great gift ideas. Anyway.
Share your story along with your picture, your name and address. Doesn't have to be a picture. And send it to irelandamcomp@virginmedia.ie. And the very best of luck, somebody's going to win that prize by the end of today's show.
Yeah, we've been loving reading your stories. They've been absolutely brilliant. So we'll be reading some throughout the show as well today. Now, coming up, Sinn Féin and the Social Democrats, they launched their manifestos just yesterday, 9 days out.
Yeah, we'll have the latest on the general election after the break.
Now it's time to take a look at this morning's papers. We're starting with the Examiner. The headline there, Dublin riots, Gardaí seek 94 people. It goes on to say that Gardaí are using for the very first time an online reporting tool on their social media sites to allow members of the public to identify or name people wanted in relation to a criminal investigation.
And the Star leads with the same story. Its headline, So Sure You. It goes on to say that Gardaí appeal for public to ID 99 people in riots probe, and their site went down last night because so many people were on it.
We're absolutely looking at it. And the shoe thing there is that there was a lot of looting being done of shoes. The Mirror's front page, a liar and a coward. A lawyer for the woman suing Conor McGregor claimed in the High Court yesterday this is in relation to the civil action taking place against the MMA fighter and another man. All allegations by the two are denied.
The Sun and the Herald both lead with that same story.
Now, something else. This is Sinn Féin's chilling pledge on RTE. A Sinn Féin manifesto pledge to commission a review into RTE's, quote, objectivity has been branded chilling by An Taoiseach. That's the top story on the Irish Daily Mail.
Fianna Fáil election candidates turn on coalition's immigration policy. Fianna Fáil is facing a backlash from its candidates over the government's approach to immigration. That's the front page of the Irish Independent.
The Irish Times says Sinn Féin denies piggy bank heist in clash over spending. Sinn Féin has denied claims that it is planning a €16 billion piggy bank heist as Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil rounded on the party's tax and spending plans.
Now, joining us with that story and everything else this morning is political correspondent for the Irish Times, Jack Horgan-Jones, and news correspondent at thejournal.ie, Orla Ryan. Good morning,
Morning,
to
guys.
you.
Morning.
So, Jack, let's start with you and the two manifestos launched yesterday. Let's start with Sinn Féin.
Yes.
What did they launch? And it's a bit late in the day to be launching it, isn't it?
Yeah, and they were subject of no shortage of criticism about this, Alan, because they are the last of the three parties to launch their manifesto, which outlines a bit of a wish list of what they'd like to do if they were elected to government. And they did so after that big leaders debate that took place on RT on Monday night.
Yeah.
So they have faced accusations that they've been kind of slow walking this in an effort to avoid scrutiny, seeing it as it is now just over halfway through the election campaign. It's unsurprising to see that the manifesto itself commits the party to significant extra levels of spending, particularly on the capital side. So things like new buildings, new houses, and so on. A total of 32 billion in new capital spending, alongside 14.3 billion in current spending. So that's on things like welfare and wages and so on.
Yeah.
So teachers and guards.
They've come in at 56. We've got Sinn Féin coming in at 50, Fine Gael coming in at 50, them coming in at 56, and Fianna Fáil coming in at 60. I think it is. Like, at this stage, we're talking about billions. It just feels like they're just lashing numbers out there.
Yeah, and what's interesting is while the three parties are very much kind of bucking against each other, they all have a kind of broadly similar approach of more spending and less taxation. Now, once you drill down into it, there are differences, particularly within Sinn Féin. They're saying that they would institute a big wealth tax, which is something that the Social Democrats also have in their manifesto, which was launched yesterday. And they're also saying, Sinn Féin are saying that they would bring in a mini budget in the first 100 days, slashing the USC, expanding medical card, and increasing capital spending on things like schools and health and housing. And
Yeah, they'd want to increase minimum wage, abolish the USC for wages up to 45,000, but they always say if they get into power, they will tax the wealthier. That's the one thing they've always been consistent on.
Yeah,
it's in every single alternative budget they put out every year. So it's what we refer to in the parlance as a red line issue. It's the kind of thing that, you know, a lot of the stuff in the manifestos falls away as government formation happens, but there are red line issues from which the programme for government eventually emerges. So that's the kind of thing you would expect.
And they've moved it from 100,000 to 140,000 over the years of the wealth tax there. Now, the Social Democrats, Orla, yesterday, they launched their manifesto as well. And of course, Holly Cairns, she's imminently about to have a baby. So it's the Deputy Leader, Cian O'Callaghan, who was doing this. And he said that their party was being very upfront because other parties are spending all this money. But he's like, it's not credible when they want to get rid of all these taxes.
Yeah, he was basically saying you can promise a lot of things, as many parties do ahead of an election, but if you can't actually deliver on them, you shouldn't promise them in the first place. So one of the big things for them is housing, obviously a massive issue as we come into the election. They're promising 50,000 affordable purchase homes, 25,000 affordable rental homes, and 70,000 social homes. And in terms of renting, they're talking about bringing in a rent freeze for 3 years and things like that. So housing is a major focus for them, as well as transport. They're saying they're going to throw everything at the public transport, is what they're describing it as. So transport and housing, two very big ones in their social.
€1 off peak to get the bus.
I mean, it will help probably. There will be free public transport.
I saw that, I went, okay.
Free public transport for children under 18 is probably a bigger one there. But yeah, they're promising things, but they're saying we can't do maybe as much as Sinn Féin Féin, for example, are promising, but they're saying that some of the other parties, what they're promising is not realistic.
So these are the final manifestos have been launched. They're all there for you to read should you want to. They're spending the Apple money like no tomorrow. But just to let you know that yesterday on Bloomberg Breakfast, Howard Lutnick, who's been picked as the Commerce Secretary for Donald Trump, he basically took aim at Ireland and said, Apple isn't staying there, we're bringing them back. He went off on a spiel about Ireland. You can find that yesterday. So,
Jack,
a bit worrying.
In your experience, do people actually listen to the manifestos and vote on what these parties are promising?
To an extent, but like these are pretty detailed documents. They usually run to kind of 100-ish pages, and it's not.
But the
possible.
headlines,
It's not possible.
what's grabbing the headlines? Do you think people are swayed on it?
I think yes, to an extent they'll get a kind of broad shape of what each party is promising. There's also a risk there that there's something in there that could blow back, and it also provides a foothold for attacks, and that's what we've seen last night into today. Fine Gael putting out no fewer than 5 press releases about the Sinn Féin manifesto in about 5 hours, and Pascal Donoghue and Peter Burke are out today to attack Sinn Féin, and I think they'll be invoking that particular kind of risk around Donald Trump and saying that the level of spending commitments is simply imprudent. So look, it reframes and resets the narrative, and now that it's over, that kind of policy blizzard moves on, and I think that people will begin to sharpen their focus on the election, and parties will begin to sharpen their focus and their attacks on each other.
The only thing that stayed in my head is that Micheál Martin hasn't had a biscuit in 30 years. Like, that's it. That's the thing that stayed in my head.
Did you say that?
Yeah.
Isn't it a biscuit in 30 years?
30 years.
He is very health conscious, but as someone pointed out the other day, he's probably the man who's been at the most functions with teas and biscuits over the last 30 years. So that shows incredible self-restraint.
That does.
Else. Yeah.
It's
Just a little
unbelievable.
dipper. While you're there, just dip the
He
biscuit.
did have some rhubarb tart while on the canvas, though, the other day.
He did.
That was his.
Rat the
his
Mind's
business.
got him to have a sweet treat. We'd love to hear from you what you make of the party's manifestos. Do you pay attention to them, or the literature that comes through your door? 089 611 111. We'd love to hear from you this morning. Now, the rest, geopolitics, keeps on moving as we're looking at our general election, and Orla, unfortunately, more people have been murdered.
Yeah, I suppose it's par for the course now. We wake up every morning and there's more bad news coming from the Middle East. Israeli forces have killed 5 Palestinians and wounded 9 in raids in the occupied West Bank. There has been attacks in and around Jenin, and we also heard this morning Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza has also been targeted. So I suppose it's just very difficult to wake up every morning and hear this. Obviously, primarily the fighting has been in the Gaza Strip, but it's moving more so into the West Bank now in recent months.
It is, and we know, like, the West Bank and Gaza, they are separated, of course, but 3 million people are living in, Palestinians are living in the West Bank now, and like, it's just now that they're targeting that, and of course we know what they were doing in Beirut yesterday, that more people were targeted there. Nothing seems to be happening as we're looking towards Ukraine at the moment.
Yeah, nothing really seems to be off limits at the minute, and obviously we're waiting as Donald Trump comes into power, how that may affect.
Well, he's going to say he's going to solve every war in the world, so we'll see about that. Let's move on. Conor Niland scooped prestigious Sports Book of the Year award, written by our very own
Gavin Cooney from the 42.ie, your colleague.
Yes, your colleague. Every week he's here with us. Great. I love the idea of this book and the whole idea of it, because we see the tennis stars like Rafa yesterday retiring, front page of everything. But as he said himself, 99% of these players who go around the world, go around these tournaments, nobody knows, and they're just trying to make a living and trying to get up the rankings. And it's a great story in that respect.
It's a brilliant book. I mean, I'm biased, Gav, as a colleague and a friend of mine, but it is a brilliant book. And it gives such an insight into people who are slogging away in the lower ranks. Like, you know, Conor broke into the top 200, so he was really high up, but, you know, he just, that kind of grind of constantly travelling, constantly moving around the world. And if you're not among those elite, it's a really hard slog.
Trying to qualify for any of the Grand Slams or anything like that, any of the bigger tournaments.
But just to let you know how good Gavin Cooney and Conor Niland are, it's the first Irish winner since Paul Kimmage's Rough Ride in 1990, which is kind of one of those talismanic sports books, to be honest. So huge congratulations.
Yeah, like when you shortlisted with people like Kelly Holmes and people like that, so it's fantastic,
We'll find out how much Gavin made out of it when he's in on Monday. So huge congratulations, and we're absolutely delighted for them. It's amazing. Now, here's something, Jack. Have we gone too far with children's birthday parties?
Yeah,
I didn't even get
in.
to the end of the question. 0896 111 111. What's going on here?
So this is a piece asking, have we gone too far with children's birthday parties? And we're talking about manifestos. If one of the political parties put a manifesto commitment in to have a kind of firm set of legislation around what can and
birthdays
can't be
can
done,
only cost €100.
They can also only take so long.
All right,
They can only be held
that's
in
the big
certain
problem.
venues. and there should be a limit on expenditure on gifts as well. Sorry, I'm a real party pooper on this.
I like this.
Yeah,
that's true.
A limit on it because these can go these go crazy.
They
right?
can go crazy, yeah. And look, there's a real tension there for parents because obviously you want to give your kid a really special day, but like there's some really heartbreaking examples in here as well, where they've gone off and talked to parents of Irish kids. And, you know, they talk about the pressure and the competitiveness and all this stuff. And then there's one particular example as well of a little 6-year-old boy who's quite shy, and his parents had a big party for him, and only 4 kids turned up as well.
See,
so, like,
that's the problem.
Don't tell me that at this hour of the morning. That's the sort of
rough.
stuff that makes
It
me
is
cry.
rough, yeah.
0896 111 111. The kids' parties. We would love to hear from you this morning as to the pressure. Should there be a limit in a WhatsApp group, tenner for the presents or whatever's going on with that?
Idea.
And
No
is there
more than
always
a tenner
someone
for
who
a
spoils it?
present. Yeah.
Orla Tuohy, thank you so much. And Jack Horgan-Jones back out on the campaign trail. Orla Ryan, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much.
Now, Tommy, how much do you spend on your kids'
What do
birthday
you think?
parties?
Yeah, it is. Listen, as every parent knows, it's how much do you spend to give them going down to Smith's every weekend to get another voucher, or even how much it is to put on a party. So, yeah. Way too much. It's crazy. Now, coming up after the break, we're going to get the latest on the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We'll see you after this short break. You're very welcome back. Now, yesterday marked 1,000 days since Russia first invaded Ukraine. And in the last couple of hours, US President Joe Biden has agreed to give Ukraine anti-personnel mines, a move that is seen as an attempt to slow Russian troops.
Joining us with an update is Ukraine correspondent for the BBC, James Waterhouse. James, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's lovely to have you with us. Can we talk about these anti-personnel landmines, something that we have seen campaigners across the world try to get rid of for years after the destruction they've left behind in various wars? But now the US have said that Ukraine can have them.
Yes, I think we're seeing a continuation of the outgoing Biden administration lift a number of long-held restrictions, and in this case, a reversal of policy. Ukraine has become the most mined country on the planet, and if you are in the east of the country and you are moving around, there is a rule of thumb that you just don't head off the tarmac. It's a consequence of Russia's full-scale invasion. Ukraine has fought back in some areas. Over the years, it's managed to liberate some territories, but the net result are swathes and swathes of rural farmland and beyond that are littered with anti-tank mines, anti-personnel mines, and in some cases, anti-personnel mines break international law. They are seen as controversial because of the way they indiscriminately can harm humans when they walk on this area. But I think, you know, over the past 48 hours, we've seen the green light for Western missiles, these ATACMS missiles, to be used, and they have been in Russia. We are seeing a real parting shot from the US and some Western allies ahead of Donald Trump taking office in the new year.
Yes, that's exactly what it looks like. And a lot of people are saying, why so late? And is it too late? Why do you think Joe Biden has made this decision? And, I mean, where does it leave Ukraine going into the coming months?
The words too late are being uttered not just by Ukraine, not just by the Zelensky government, but among some experts as well. This is something Ukraine has pushed for some time, because war is about supply lines. If you can use missiles to take out supply routes, ammunition depots, in the case of Russia's Bryansk region yesterday, a weapons depot, that directly hinders their soldiers' ability to continue to wage this invasion. But the West has always been fearful of an escalation, of putting itself in direct confrontation with Russia. And you only need to look at the language coming out of Moscow yesterday. It was looking to confront those anxieties. It's changed the criteria it would use to deploy nuclear weapons. I think there is a message very much being sent there, but I don't think we're seeing either Ukraine or the US describe this as a game changer. It is not going to allow Ukraine to take back territory. It's simply, we are now in the area of Ukraine trying to improve its position in any way ahead of some kind of peace negotiation, which Ukraine was desperate to avoid.
Well, before we get to that sort of it's not even a dog whistle of nuclear weapons. Let's talk about what the situation is actually like on the ground, James, because you've been going back and forth to Ukraine for so long now, and we're hearing that the people on the front line are just tired, that they want this to be over, regardless of what it is Russia gets out of this. What is going on? How are people feeling in Ukraine?
That is a view. That is, of course, a view when you have people that live in the east and missiles land daily in their village, for example, and you see enough death and destruction. And a Donald Trump presidency is seen as a way out. That is still a growing minority perspective. Okay. Broadly, Ukraine still wants to fight, but you're right. There is great fatigue now. I watched people in their tens of thousands volunteer in the first weeks of this war. They gave their passports at registration centres. They then joined the military, or they were simply handed an AK-47 in some cases, and they headed out to fight. The West was united behind Ukraine, and the world was shocked. Those people now are either dead, injured, or still fighting, exhausted on the front lines. And now, certainly in Kyiv, you have men who are petrified of being mobilised, conscripted under a controversial law which doesn't allow them to leave the country, and it affects all men between 25 and 60 with very few exemptions. This is the stage of the war we are at. It is a war of attrition. It has been for some time. And when you're Ukraine, the smaller fighter here, a war of attrition does not suit you, because Russia, despite its own huge losses, it can keep coming.
Yeah.
James, we know that Iran have been supplying drones to Russia. We know that North Korea have just provided 10,000 troops to Russia. We know Vladimir Putin has just signed this decree broadening the scope of Russia's nuclear weapons. What does this mean for Ukraine and the West? How worrying is this for the next while?
Well, let's start on the nuclear point, because that will get a lot of ears picking up. I think there is a geopolitical purpose here for Russia. That is clear. There are many in the Republican Party in the US who are worried about World War III. He is looking to play to those fears. Of course, you should take such language seriously. But in Ukraine, there is frustration because the word nuclear takes a lot of the headlines. An escalation could mean an act of sabotage towards the West or a cyber attack, for example. And what Ukraine also argues is that that escalation has not happened yet. So you're right to point out you have Russia increasing its own geopolitical footprint by strengthening its relationship with North Korea, with North Korean troops now joining the fight, with Russia continuing to supply these deadly, cheap Shahed drones. And Ukraine is looking westward and saying, well, how are you going to counterbalance this? And I think Joe Biden is looking to partially do that, but just look at the rhetoric from Donald Trump. He is still talking about stopping this war in a short space of time. It won't be the turning off of a tap in terms of military aid, but I think we are seeing Ukraine, it'll only come under increasing pressure to cede territory in some way, which is still unpalatable because they argue Russia will agree to a ceasefire, the West will look elsewhere, and then, as it has done time after time, Vladimir Putin is still a maximalist. He will still go for the whole of Ukraine and keep his country on a war footing. These are really difficult times for Ukraine, but nevertheless, people thought it would fall in 72 hours. 1,000 days on, it is still fighting.
And we have seen some reports coming out of Finland that they're just destroying roads that are going into Russia. A lot of countries are worried. And Europe, we're right at the coalface of this. It isn't homogenous, our response to what it is we should be doing in relation to Ukraine and Russia and with weapons. Do you think Europe needs to come more together on this, that we're just giving off too many different messages?
Well, I think the spotlight is on Europe, but Europe is also acknowledging over the past couple of years that it can't fill any gap at the moment left by the US. Remember the disagreement in Congress over a huge tranche of military aid for Ukraine. That delay directly caused Ukrainian soldiers to run out of ammunition. They then started heading backwards. They lost territory, and it made Ukraine's job of recruiting more soldiers all the more difficult. Europe set a target of 1 million artillery shells in a year, and it fell some way short of that. But you're right. The eastern boundaries of Europe, Vladimir Putin, one of his issues he claimed in mounting this full-scale invasion was the expansion of NATO as he saw it. And here we have NATO with 2 more members. We're seeing Finland harder its border harden its border further. Whether Vladimir Putin, we're hearing this argument, would, if he was to take all of Ukraine, turn his attentions to a NATO member, I think that is quite a leap at this stage, given the losses he has sustained in Ukraine. And, many would question the wisdom of testing NATO's Article 5 of supporting one if the other is attacked. But, the moment, because of the West's minimal appetite to step in over fears of escalation, that is still a lingering possibility in the eyes of some. And here we are with this question. How has the West been able to stop Russia's aggression against Ukraine and its alignment with the West? An increasing number of people would argue Russia has succeeded in that goal.
Right, yeah. Frightening. 1,000 days yesterday into this war, and it doesn't seem to be improving any bit. James Waterhouse, Ukraine correspondent with the BBC. Thank you so much, James, for joining us this morning to give us an update on the situation over there. Lots more still to come here on Ireland Day.
See you, Matt.
Now, today it has become a normal thing to see adults screaming and shouting on the sidelines of children's sports matches, with coaches and parents regularly being sent away from the pitch because of their actions.
We would love to hear from you about this. 0896 111 111. Joining us to discuss the place of adult aggression in children's sport is journalist and host of the Conversation with Parents podcast, and of course, mother of 7. We have to throw that in there, Jen Hogan. It is lovely to have you here. Is this something that you have seen on the side of pitches?
It is, unfortunately. I think over the course of the years, with all the different kids being involved in so many different sports, it's something that I think I saw creep in more and more, particularly as they start to go up the ages.
Did it feel like with the older kids that it wasn't there as much? Like, has it gotten worse over time?
It has definitely gotten worse. It has gotten, some things in sports have improved. I think we're a little bit more aware about things like around inclusion and about making sure children have a fair amount of time. I mean, it's still a huge problem, but we're talking about it now. So things like that are perhaps something we're aware about, and that helps with frustration that you might see. But the aggression has not improved. That's definitely got worse over the years. It used to be a thing when my older children were small that you could do things like carpool shares and stuff. You'd be quite happy to share match runs with other parents and try to kind of cut all the different runs that's involved with, not training. Training is grand. People are happy to do shares there. But for matches, you'd happily share. As kids go up, as you go up the age, and from talking to other parents, I know this is a thing across the board, you became a little bit less comfortable doing those car shares not because you didn't trust the parents that were taking them, but because you were afraid of something happening at the match and there not being somebody there, not being a parent or a guardian there for your child,
Really?
But just because as you went up, it got a little bit. I know certainly from my own experience, having witnessed a couple of different things where parents, maybe on the opposing team I'll be fair to my own teams, I haven't witnessed it within my own children's teams at any stage up the years, but it has happened with opposing teams a couple of times, or fights breaking out on the pitch as the kids became teenagers, and it not maybe being dealt with quickly enough that I became concerned, going, God, if I wasn't there or my husband wasn't there and something happened and it was one of my kids, I wouldn't feel comfortable.
Really?
Yeah.
But it kind of leads to a thing then of this helicopter parenting where parents are always there. My parents did not come to my matches.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
I'd have been the exact same. When I was growing up, my parents wouldn't have had the time to be at them either.
They didn't, yeah.
And I am so far from a helicopter parent. I don't have time. There's too many of them.
But it does mean that parents are even more stretched if they have to be there.
They are absolutely more stretched.
And could lead to more stress and anger on the
more stress, more frustration, more anger.
Do you think that there's more shouting and roaring on the sideline? Like, listen, I remember growing up and playing Gaelic football and the roaring from the sidelines was crazy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, was it always there? We just have rose-tinted glasses? Or do you think it's getting more serious? Whenever people kind of see that there's actually a professional opportunity for their little Johnny or their little Mary to go off play football or rugby, whatever else, that the parents are getting more into it, more competitive?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both. I think, like Miriam was saying before, your parents weren't there when you were playing sports, so we didn't have necessarily that side of things. They came along if they could, the odd time, whereas now you do see a lot more parents on the sidelines during it. And we do have perhaps unrealistic expectations. There's an awful lot of conversations you hear that make you smile over the years. You know, you'll sit there and go, oh, I can see him, I can see now. He's really, really talented. They're really talented. And then you learn this child, they're talking about their 18-month-old toddler, and you're going, it's great. It's great. You know?
Real eye for the ball.
He's real eye for the ball. And you're hearing these conversations, and you kind of worry a little bit about perspective and where the fun has gone. And there is, I think we're confusing enthusiasm and passion with aggression. I think we're seeing this sort of thing. I understand, obviously, parents want to support their children. They want to support their children's team. We maybe want to be encouraging, but we are definitely seeing more overstepping of the mark here now, where it moves to negative commentary, maybe going at the opposing team, or even negative commentary. There was a parent talking to me yesterday, and I'm always speaking to parents about this sort of thing because it is an ongoing problem. And a parent yesterday told me that she had to intervene because a parent was roaring abuse at their own child.
Yeah.
So it's not always even.
And this is because your husband is a coach as well.
Yeah.
It puts a lot of pressure on the coach. You know, when you have 10 coaches on the sideline trying to give their tuppence worth as well.
And that's even as a parent, because, you know, I talk about going to the matches. Actually, obviously love going and watching my kids play. I'm a big sports fan myself. So going along and watching them play, even though it's children's sports and quite different to growing up in competitive sports, for a coach who's trying to instruct the team, it is difficult. But at the same time, I don't know that we want to go down the road of having total silence on the sidelines, which is the fear. But you have a coach trying to manage all these people on the sides, giving out their advice, giving out their instruction, their interpretation of what's going on and where Johnny should be and where Mary should be and who's playing well and why is he still on the pitch, and all this sort of really harmful commentary for kids.
And it's interesting because we've spoken before about silent sidelines. Yeah. And this isn't just about sport, by the way. There was a big controversy happening in Irish dancing and, you know, overstepping there and what was going on with this. From your point of view, you know, obviously you were a professional sports person, so you remember being roared at on the sideline at a young age, but you've got kids now as well, and you're seeing things.
Well, I see it now. Listen, my kids aren't at the age yet where they're playing too much sports. It's not too competitive yet, but when I'm out walking the dog, I can see parents shouting and roaring, giving their... But I do remember back when I particularly played Gaelic football, the abuse and well, not abuse, but just instructions and roaring from parents on the sideline. And
did it help?
I don't think, it didn't really bother me as a player, I don't think. I just remember my dad at one stage criticised me, and that hit home. But, you know, it made me kind of pick up my, play a little bit better. But
Throw your father under the bus there, national television. Fair play to you. Fair play to you.
I do wonder, is it just that we look back and we think, it wasn't like that back in the day, or has it gotten worse? And that's because it's something where we talk about helicopter parent now, we talk about being a bit more precious. Are we more precious nowadays? Or is it actually...
But there's probably a bit as well, Tommy, isn't there? If we know better, we should do better. And if this was happening years ago where people were shouting abuse, I mean, the whole goal, surely, with children's sports is to have as many children involved for as long as possible.
Yes.
And if it becomes this thing where they're feeling intimidated or abused or that they don't belong in a sport, whether that's because of inclusion or exclusion or because of aggression on the sidelines, then we are failing as adults in children's sport.
The under-8s ain't the Premier League lads. No. Calm down. It is all about kids going out. You know what I mean?
Should always end a draw. There you go.
Well, the thing is, kids will always know the score. They will, whether we do that or not. It's when the adults let competition be the main focus, when that's more important.
It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a tough one to know where to find the balance on it.
Well, we're asking you, 0896 111 111, the things you have seen on the sidelines, how your children's react. Jen Hogan, who of course is journalist and host of Conversations with Parents podcast, you can catch you there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, always a pleasure.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Still to come, the comedy king Jarlath Regan is going to be dropping by.
Plus press photographer of the year.
Forward to this,
You know him, James Crombie, talks shooting sports stars to shooting birds. In a good way. Photography, not in another way. Talk to you in a minute. time now to take a look at this morning's papers. We're going to start with the Examiner. The headline there, Dublin riots, Gardaí seek 94 people. It goes on to say that Gardaí are using for the first time an online reporting tool on their social media sites. It allows members of the public to identify or name people wanted in relation to a criminal investigation. All of these pictures are people in relation to the Dublin riots last year.
The Star leads with the same story. Its headline, "So, shoo are you?" It goes on to say that Garda appeal for public to ID 99 people in riots probe.
I went straight onto it yesterday. The Sun, the Herald and the Mirror all lead with that same story. With a different story, and it goes, "A liar and a coward." A lawyer for the woman suing Conor McGregor claimed in the High Court yesterday. This is in relation to the civil action taking place against the MMA fighter and another man. All allegations, both of the men, they fully deny them.
Sinn Féin's chilling pledge on RTE. A Sinn Féin manifesto pledge to commission a review into RTE's objectivity has been branded chilling by the Taoiseach. This is the top story on the Daily Mail.
Fianna Fáil election candidates turn on coalition's immigration policy. Fianna Fáil is facing a backlash from its candidates over the government's approach to immigration, with comments likely to move the issue to centre stage in the election. The representatives push back against the development of migrant accommodation in their own constituencies. That's the front page of the Irish Independent today.
And the Irish Times leads with Sinn Féin denies piggy bank heist in clash over spending. Sinn Féin have denied claims that it is planning a €16 billion piggy bank heist as Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil rounded on the party's tax and spending plans.
Now, in case you've missed it, we're teamed up with Virgin Media Broadband to give away a 4K smart TV, an Xbox and a Samsung Galaxy phone every single day this week. We've had 2 very happy winners already this week.
Yeah,
So,
amazing.
to be added into today's draw, we're asking you to share your best or worst gifts, whether you be the gifter or the giftee. And we got lots of stories coming in this morning.
Yeah, some great ones in. Valerie said, 1 year for Christmas, my husband gave me slippers and hand warmers containing lavender. I'm allergic to lavender. Her hands went up.
What about this one? Jackie, I can't choose between 2 worst gifts. I've received both from my husband, Dave. Frame picture of Elland Road. Love that.
No.
Leeds
United,
I
yeah.
know.
He's a Leeds United fan. You should enjoy that, Jackie. And a thing to make fried eggs perfectly round. Great present as well.
Would you like to receive the perfectly round thing?
What is it? You put it in the pan first, you put the egg in it, and it stays round.
Lovely, yeah.
Round.
Perfect fried
Christine,
eggs.
on my birthday, I hosted a party. I had loads of friends over to celebrate. One guest brought a bottle of champagne as a gift. Fantastic. At first glance, it seemed thoughtful and celebratory. Upon closer inspection, however, I realised the bottle, it had been tampered with. The paper wrapping was missing and the cork holder had been half open. So it looked like someone had unsuccessfully tried to open, couldn't do it, and said, sure, look, I'll give it to her for her birthday.
Oh, but it wasn't opened.
I know, but it's... You
It
obviously
wasn't.
had
You know what?
to
It wasn't opened.
It wasn't
Okay.
open.
They hadn't spat in the
They
bottle,
hadn't.
Christine. You should
I
be
was
happy.
thinking if the cork had popped off there.
Now, Elaine in Kildare received this. Well, what would you think if you got this for a gift? Donald Trump, the beautiful poetry book.
Look at the picture. Wow.
As part of a Mother's Day gift one year, the Donald Trump Book of Poetry was given to be my son.
What is one of the poems? I'm the greatest, you are not the greatest, but I am the greatest. That's it. That's the poem done. Fantastic.
Oh, I love it.
You want the book now, do you?
We should get the book.
But
here.
he says in that as well that his son thinks it was hilarious and he got
Oh
it
yeah,
for his mum.
my son thinks it's hilarious. That's very funny.
Love
She
that.
hasn't even opened the book.
Well done.
We're also talking about kids' birthday parties.
By the way, share your story along with your
sorry.
name and address to irelandam.comp@virginmedia.ie. Send us in your worst or best presents, or well, your worst ones. And if you have a picture of them like that Donald Trump book, we'd love to see them.
Brilliant. Love it. Love it. We're also talking about kids' birthday parties. You were told there was a story about it in the Irish Independent this morning about the cost of it. And how expensive it is. My son started junior infants this September. To do a whole class party would have been €800. Granted, it looked lovely, but no way. Even the local soft play place would have been €600 if the whole class had turned up. Didn't know enough of the children, and that's the other thing, because you don't know half the kids or the parents. Didn't know enough of the children at that stage, so to invite just a couple, so decided to wait until next year. which I could do something smaller with less children. It is crazy money. But that's what it is. So if I have, say, 25 kids in my daughter's class, you're talking 30 euro each, probably by the time you rent, like it could be a hall or a soft play, and you have to get them pizza or chicken nuggets, whatever else. So it's like 750 quid. Yeah.
There's like, surely Emma has 2 or 3 close pals in the class and not 20. She doesn't hang out with all 25 of them.
You have to invite the class. You can't
And you
leave
don't
anyone
want
out.
to leave people out. You see, if you start inviting maybe 3 or 4 of them, then there are going to be kids who are going to miss out on the birthday. Nowadays, hers is just the girls go to one party and the boys go to the other. But for my son, the whole bloody class goes. And
Jamie, that's social butterfly.
But he's still quite young, so we probably will only do a small one.
But then you're kind of siloing boys and girls as well. Anyway, listen, there's loads of messages coming in about that, and also about the political manifestos. We're going to try to get them very shortly. You can get in contact with us, 0896 111 111.
Now, still to come, he is fresh from a sell-out US tour.
Comedian Jarlath Regan is going to be dropping by.
See you in a few minutes.
You're very welcome back. Now, our next guest is a comedian who has sold out theatres all across the world. He's made us laugh through his skits online and educated us about the ins and outs of US politics on this podcast.
And running. He can teach you how to run as well, lads. Before we chat with the man himself, let's take a quick look at Jarlath Regan in action.
No crack Irish people are the reason why Irish pubs invented snugs. Irish publicans recognise that these no crackers are arriving and they're ruining the night. And one person in there said, I wish there was some way that we could sequester them in a pen of some sort. Oh, in perfect world we'd do that. No, hear me out. What we could do is we wouldn't even need planning for it. We could just put 2 panels of wood there and there. Wouldn't even need a roof on it. Just put a panel there and there. How will we know they're in there? Put a window on the side there. Put a window there. I don't want to be looking at them in there. We'll frost the glass.
As someone who sits in a snug, I'm highly offended. I'm highly offended. Have you ever had people coming up to you going, Jar, I sit in a snug?
The truth is, I love a snug myself
We
as
all
well.
love
You
a
wonder
snug.
why am I in here? I think I know why.
Is that the thing, though? It's lovely to have you, first of
great
all.
to be here.
Thank you for seeing it.
I was thinking about the bad gifts there, and I actually asked the audience in the last show, your man that's just coming out, for the worst gift your partner has ever got you. Okay. And I mean the hands go flying up because everybody has a present their partner got them where they're like, do you even know me? Best one of the whole tour, Galway, woman hand up at the back. Her partner bought her a framed, professionally taken photograph of his mother. That's a true story. That happened. Like that.
Right.
That's the top answer.
I mean, to be fair, most people...
That's true. Yeah.
For her to get a picture of the mother-in-law, like there's normally a bit of evils between the wife and the mother-in-law. So to go and do that.
A set of tyres was the next one, and that again splits the audience because there's some fellas watching this now going,
I'm not even joking.
A very expensive gift.
I would love a set of tyres. I'm all about the practical gifts.
Yeah.
But you do that because you tour all over the world. You like the old chats with the audience, don't you?
I would. I try, honestly, I try and talk to the crowd a little bit in that I don't want anybody to feel like that they're being threatened, that the audience chat with the audience should be crack. Irish audiences have an incredible amount of crack in them themselves, so you're bound to find stuff. Like if a phone goes off, I'm like, you don't berate the person for the phone going off. You try and find out who's ringing you, what's happening, because usually there's a babysitter, a teenager at home who was told, do not ring unless...
Yeah, the panic in that parent's face.
So there's a lot more going on.
Is there a misconception, though, sometimes you think that, particularly if you're talking to US audiences and stuff, that Irish people maybe aren't always great crack?
No, they assume we all are. They assume as soon as they hear the voice, but they don't know that there are loads of us that aren't, right? And every single person knows people in their lives that they're directly trying to avoid who are zero crack, who are crack vacuums, zero
Potholes.
crack. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this now going, there's nobody in my life like that,
it's you, right?
Sorry to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, no, American audiences were just. This is my first trip over there ever.
Let's talk about this
Yeah.
because I was watching online. And I think your wonderful wife Tina was putting up pictures. You kept selling out in New York, man.
Yeah, it was madness. Now I have to say, because I put on a show over there and just said, look, we'll see what happens, and it sold out in 24 hours. We just kept adding shows. And then I turned to my wife and said, I haven't arranged a visa.
You didn't have a work visa?
I didn't have a visa.
Fair play.
And then I found a fella, Lorcan Shannon, shout out to him in Manhattan. Good Clare man, sorted me out, helped me through the process. And that's actually in the new show that's going to be in the Olympia in January.
Tell us what that is like. I mean, selling out a show at home, in London maybe even as well, which was your home for a long time.
Yeah.
But going to New York, going to America and standing underneath the sign saying, Jarlath Regan, sold out.
Tommy, winning a Grand Slam, like it doesn't go in.
Well,
you're literally going, what is happening here?
But it doesn't get much better.
It doesn't get much better. You're like, this was always my dream.
Yeah.
And you're just shaking your head the whole time going, what is happening? And what is happening is really people watching Instagram and finding what they like and going out and seeing it. And that's really what we're seeing in comedy and in entertainment is like, people know what they like. They like this. He's coming to my town. I'll go and see him. And that's lovely.
And it has been a game changer because you've been doing this for 20 years. And in that time, comedy has changed hugely. It's really interesting, hearing people reflect, like someone like Frank Skinner, reflect on comedy he used to do. And he's like, I wouldn't even want to do it now. It's not that I can't do it.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't want to. It's not who I am.
Well, it was all TV based, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Everything
yeah.
you had to get on the telly.
Yeah.
That was always the thing when I started out. And now everybody's got their own channel and they produce their own stuff and they put it up every day and people tune in.
Total game changer.
Each morning there's a new thing.
And the Americans can do the name, can't they? Jarlath.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like
it's
they're
just how
fine
it's
with that.
spelled. Yeah, it's
Say
nice
it as
though,
it's
Maren,
spelled.
that you were concerned about.
I was. I'm always
make sure
concerned.
those American people are pronouncing your name right.
Jarlath. They can do it. They can do it.
They're surprisingly bright.
One of your videos or one of your skits that you do a lot is about the mammy, the Irish mammy, and the difference between the favourite son and the daughter.
The day that you all realise it, that it dawns on you, we were like, yeah, we've been living it, lads.
Again this morning. I mean, it has me in stitches because it's so true.
Yeah, we all
It's a
lived it.
lived experience.
Explain for everybody what it is, Jarlath.
People are always asking me, what does your mother think of these reels? And she's like, I know somebody just like that,
What do you say in these?
What?
In these very famous reels now about you realising, oh, I am treated differently to myself.
Oh yeah, look, a lot of fellas won't associate this with this at all because they're like, my mother's, she's great, she's my PR executive, she's out around the town promoting me, telling me I'm getting better looking with age. And for the girls, she's just a cold blast of honesty, set to max strength, ready to hit her in the face. The first time she's feeling good about herself, or as she likes to call it, the voice of reason. I mean, it's facts, but like at the end of the day, it all comes from a place of love. And what is interesting is everyone gets in touch about it. It's different nationalities. Like Jewish mothers, people told me in America, this is Jewish mothers, Sri Lankan mothers. The weirdest part of it is, though, people shouting mammy stuff at me in the street. I was in the Phoenix Park Cafe and a woman came up to me and I was in my running gear and she goes, I suppose you think you're great out for the run now? And I was like, I don't know, who is this? Who's this person? Somebody shouted something at me from a car in Blanchardstown. I was like, what was that all about? And Tina was like, she was shouting an Irish mammy. She said, it's too early for shopping.
So you're just getting the material all the time. You've got a new show coming, In Bits.
Yes.
And sorry to anyone who tries to get tickets for the Olympia because they're basically all gone. But you're doing a matinee show.
Do a matinee.
Now, this is interesting because we've seen things like we're just talking about things like Junior Taskmaster, Unbleached, these things that are for the whole family. That's what you're doing.
Well, to a degree, yeah. Like I see families coming to my shows. It's not to say that it's, nicey family comedy, but 14 up, we're seeing the teenagers, the people in their 20s, their mam and their gran coming to the show. Everything was sold out at the Olympia. So we were like, why not add a 5 o'clock show? And, I'm not saying it's going to be totally clean,
Most of my stuff is just on the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought, why not? Afternoon.
Why not squeeze another date into sell a few more tickets? You're bloody right.
But it
can
is.
do it. Why not?
If kids are watching it at home with their parents online,
exactly.
like you see that it's really interesting to kind of do this sort of comedy.
Yeah, well, why leave them out? I mean, I always think the best song at the wedding is the one that fills the floor with everyone. And that's the hardest comedy to write. So that's what I'm trying to do, and In Bits is that show.
Well, listen,
we're exclusively revealing this, by the way, guys.
In the 3 Olympia in January, and we are exclusively revealing that Jarlath Regan is announcing a matinee on Saturday, January the 11th. Tickets go on sale this Friday.
Friday week. Sorry.
Friday
week.
You can get those on
We're
Ticketmaster.
exclusive, but not right.
.ie/Jarlath Regan.
Thank you so much.
Listen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And continued success. Honestly, it makes me laugh.
Yeah,
we love having
you.
We'll
get you guys onto a show at some point.
We'll be there.
Come on down.
We'll be there. Can make Egypts out of us. Look, they know things, but not much.
With Jarlath.
That's it.
Good man.
Thanks so much, Jarlath. Lovely to see you. Lovely to family. Now, still to come on the show, Paul Knapp. He's stepping up our snack game.
And we're going to meet the man responsible for capturing Ireland's greatest sporting moments. Here you have it after the break.
Now, this morning, we're serving up some midday snacking inspiration.
Yes.
Snacking inspiration, Tommy. There you go.
Sure is. Sharing the secret to parsnip hummus. Wowie. Paul Knapp, good morning.
How are you? On that one, don't we?
Well, parsnip hummus. Yeah, normally it's chickpea, isn't it?
Absolutely. So what we're doing is still chickpea. So what we're going to do is we just take out half the chickpeas and we put in the parsnip. So what we can do is we use that as a predominant flavour. But what you can do is, to say, what you've got there is you've got a couple of others. So you can switch out the parsnip, same amount of ingredient, and put in carrot or sweet potato, and you can do it in one. So from the one you get the two. So what we got first of all is we've got to roast off our parsnip. So we put in there a little bit of salt, and we put in there a little bit of pepper, and we've got in there a little bit of oil, okay? And we just toss this in a little bit of oil, as we say, onto a roasting tray, and then you can pop that into the oven, and we bang that in there 160 for around about sort of like about 30, 35 minutes until they go, you know, like roast parsnips are, they look like potatoes and they're nice and soft. So they go into there like so, okay? So we can bang them in there, and then you can forget about those. What we're going to do is we're going to serve our hummus with a few little bits and pieces to make it look festive. So it's kind of like a festive thing. So we've got enough grief coming up at Christmas time, do you know what I mean, with all the things that are going on.
Yeah.
So the less stress that we can have in the kitchen, the better, really, do you know what I mean? So if we can remove some of that stress, if we can give you some ideas before it kind of kicks off, you can put them into your culinary toolbox and you can draw them out as and when things happen, OK?
Easy.
So what we've done is we take the chickpeas, I've taken half of them, and I'm going to put them into a bowl, and what we're going to do is we're just going to spice these up ever so slightly. So I've got some cumin, some coriander, some turmeric, some salt and some chilli flakes. Again, with a little bit of oil goes into there like so. All right, a little dash of oil, and then all we're going to do is we're going to roast those for about 15 minutes at the same temperature as our parsnips are on. So all this does is this just creates like taste, texture and colour. So we're going to bang these into our little tray like this, and we're going to roast those off. So
now, if I'm just doing normal hummus, do you just do double the amount of that?
If you're doing a normal hummus, then if you wanted to put roasted chickpeas on top, this is just like a garnish as such, do you know what I mean? So this is going on the top, and you'll see it when it's finished. If you're doing a regular hummus, just use the whole can of chickpeas.
OK.
So we can lob those in there for 15 minutes, OK? As you said,
a lot of work, isn't it, for a bit of hummus?
That's why you've got me.
Yeah. But I don't think
I do catering events as well. I'll come round for Christmas.
It's just oven.
It's just chuck it in the oven. A lot of it is, if you have it, it's handy, do you know what I mean?
And then blitz it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So all I've got there is a pan here. It's going to heat up the oil, and equal amounts of oil and maple syrup go into my little pan here like so, OK? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little festive caramelised walnut. OK, so we turn that up nice and high. The oil meets the maple syrup. In that goes like so, and we leave that for a couple of minutes, and that starts to caramelise that. So what we're doing is we're building up all the little accompaniments for our dish for when it's finished, all right?
Lovely.
So now, the hummus part of it. Hummus, lemon juice, OK? That's a staple that goes into all of our hummuses, and that's no problem with that. So we're going to put in the juice of a lemon, and if you want to put in the zest of a lemon, you can as well. This is a roast parsnip and thyme one, OK? So we're putting into that round about a decent tablespoon of fresh thyme. You can use dried if you wanted to, there's no problem. As you can see with this, it's starting to bubble away, and ultimately what we want to do is we want to get rid of all of the liquid that's in there. And what that'll do is that'll caramelise those walnuts, and there's a nice sweet taste. So when we put this all together, you get the taste, the texture, the colour, you get the crunch and stuff like that, OK? So that's gone in there like so. Cumin seed. Half a teaspoon of cumin seeds goes in there. A couple of cloves of garlic goes in. The remaining half tin of chickpeas has gone in there as well. And what we're using is tahini.
So, sorry, those chickpeas, they're uncooked?
They are just out the can, wash them, drain them, leave them to dry.
And tahini, yeah,
And
that's
tahini.
the big thing for it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So this is a light tahini. I'm not a huge, I don't like the too strong a flavour of tahini. So that's just a lighter tahini goes into that like so. So again, these literally only take a couple of minutes. So
I tried to make this a little while ago and got it all wrong.
It's really, really
Tried to
simple.
make what? Hummus?
Hummus, yeah.
At home.
Is there something you put an ice cube into it?
Yeah,
or
I
is
was just going to say that, yeah. So what we're going to do is we're popping in, all the ice cube would do is, you know, sometimes you can get a hummus that's quite kind of thick.
Yeah.
And people like it either smooth or like it chunky, it's whatever your preference be. So once these are roasted and we've got all our ingredients into there, we're going to put in there a good glug of olive oil goes in there as well, like so. And also, too, is we're going to put in some water. The colder the water, the better. But what I do is I normally put in ice cubes, OK?
Yeah.
So I put in probably, if it says like 3 or 4 tablespoons, I put 3 or 4 smallish ice cubes. They go
I'm
in
going
there
to try
like so.
one of these roasted parsnips.
But why the ice cubes?
It
Why
just
the
helps
cold
with the
water?
emulsification. So what you'll get is you'll get that nice kind of light and fluffy kind of hummus. So it's a lot creamier rather than...
Mine was too thick
Yeah,
then.
they just
as
add
I
a little bit
didn't
more
have
water
in
into
there.
it. That's all. A bit more water, a bit more oil.
And
Just trying to put a bit of water in it,
ideally cold water.
Yeah, absolutely cold. Yeah, colder the better. So what we do is you pulse that and blitz that. Now, really, about 3 or 4 minutes in a food processor.
Okay.
Right. The more powerful, the quicker it's going to be. Okay. So you blitz that up, you blitz that up, you blitz that up, and what we'll get left with is this. So what we've got in here is we've got our roasted parsnip, and we've got all our ingredients, all our bits and pieces. Now, when it comes to hummus, you can just chuck it into a bowl, or a presentation is kind of one of the big things of hummus. And what I like with food like this is you can lob it onto a big plate, you can chuck it out with some flatbreads, and then you can just literally just dish it all up and such like that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of swirl it around. Those flatbreads there we made, they are just 400 grams of self-raising flour, teaspoon of baking powder, and then all we put into that as well then was just 300 grams of a plant-based yogurt. So when you turn around and say this is a plant-based dish...
That's cool, yeah.
Oh, yeah, so what you got, it's all about just making it look kind of simple and easy, OK? Then we're going to finish that off. So our chickpeas, you know the ones we've roasted off?
Yeah.
So you can have these as like little snacks. So if you're going to roast them, do a few more.
Yeah.
Because that way then you've got something you can sit down with a beer and stuff like that, do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, they're tasty.
So what we do is we're going to pour over some of our roasted chickpeas. OK, like so. Then we're going to do is, of course, it's thyme. So we're going to put on there a little fresh bit of thyme goes over there like so, like this. Just, if you haven't got fresh thyme, you can use dried thyme, OK? You just use a third less. Dried thyme. And that goes on there like so. So it's trying to get in there those festive colours as well, OK? Then we're going to put on there some fresh pomegranate just over the top of this like so.
Wow.
So we're getting taste, textures and colours. And this is a dish that you just kind of just have it all done like that. And then all you do is you just get your flatbread and just wang it.
And what have you made? What are these two then? So this is a carrot one.
That is a roasted carrot and cumin.
And it's the same, except instead of parsnips, you just put in
Absolutely,
a carrot.
yeah. So I'm just putting on there.
And this one? Oh, that's the
sweet potato.
Sweet potato one.
So all we've done there is I've just put on there those caramelised walnuts, and then we just finish that off with them with a good drizzle of olive oil, like
that
so.
looks so lovely and presentable.
And that's what it is. It looks lovely. It's like me going out at night. First thing is it looks lovely, and then by the end of the time it's finished, it's a mess. So then we just put that there.
But like if you're saying like Christmas Day or like with people coming over, it's lovely to have something like that.
Absolutely. Then you just get your bread and you just literally just drag the whole thing through and off you go.
You
So
do
dig
little
in.
crackers
Well, that's what I'll do right now. Thank you very much.
You can do it with whatever you want. I just did with flatbreads, but you can have crackers, you can have like veggies around the side of it and stuff like that. You can have whatever you want, like, do you know what I mean? That's the nice thing about this dish, is you can just switch out the veg and you can put whatever in you want.
Paul Napa, as ever. Absolutely delicious.
Thank you so much. Now, after the break, photographer James Crombie chats about memorable sporting moments he caught on camera. See you back here very shortly.
You're very welcome back. Now, our next guest has won the Irish Press Photographer in both 2021 and 2022, becoming the first sports photographer to receive this accolade in over 40 years.
His iconic sports pictures of so many amazing rugby players. Don't think they've got any of this fella. But also he's got iconic murmurations. They have gained worldwide acclaim, and now he is turning his talent into a brand new wildlife book that is stunning. Please welcome James Crosby. Good morning. How are you?
Crombie.
What did I say? Sorry. Crombie, it's so... Because you know each other, right?
Yeah, we've crossed paths.
Crossed paths through the years, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But how you got into photography is very interesting. How did it happen, James?
Yeah, so 18 years ago this month, October 2006, I won a reality TV show. And it was called No Experience Required. Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So such a turn of events. I was working in IT. I was having a good time, and info photography that was on the show. And I think I bet about 500 people to win it, and I'm still there now.
Listen, incredible, and we'll get on to murmurations, whatever else, but from sports, were you into sport? Do you have to have a love of sport to be a photographer? Because you have captured some of the most iconic images in Irish sport over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But it means you're away from home an awful lot. You're at matches all the time, and it might not be as enjoyable as everybody really thinks.
It is. I'm a failed sport. I wanted to play sports when I was young, because if I didn't have the physique, the talent, the speed, anything. So to have a job where I actually go to games all the time, from GA to rugby to the Olympics to whatever, it really is the dream job. And I know it takes a big toll at home because you're gone all the time, but I think my wife understands that.
But people don't see that. Like, I mean, you were at probably 2 or 3 of the rugby matches of the week. Like, you're gone most weekends doing Gaelic football matches, rugby matches. Then during the week, there's all sorts of events. Like, it's a serious toll.
Yeah, like I left my house Friday morning around 6 a.m. and I got back Monday evening around 4. Wow. So you miss out on all the weekend stuff. And
we're looking at some iconic pictures here from the Olympics. We just have Rhys McClenaghan there. This is Rashida Adeleke. Like, look at
gorgeous.
They're so important. That's the thing. And I'm just wondering, in your career, since you won a reality TV show and then you've become this incredibly well-known sports photographer and now a nature photographer, what it's like in that time, because the game has changed. Everyone's a photographer these days with their camera phone, but they can't do that. Yeah. And it still does matter, doesn't it? It
really does. Like with AI and everything now, the actual importance of journalism and sports journalism is what I do. Is we have a very big responsibility to capture truthfully what's happening, and also like capturing people's careers, like Tommy's, Rashida's. You know, it's a great responsibility to be able to portray what people are looking at. And the GA season's amazing. Like when you get to kind of everyone in the summer is watching the GA, and if you turn the papers over on Monday and you've got the front page, you know you summed up that event in one picture. That's what we're trying to do.
There, Ciara McGeady winning the All-Ireland for Armagh. Then that's iconic picture of Johnny Sexton standing over Ronan O'Gara. Yeah. Of course, Johnny's book has just come out.
Yeah.
Do you follow certain players? How, because the best photographers generally take the best pictures. It's where a lot of people would put it down to luck.
Yeah.
How do you know where the best angle picture shot person is going to be?
Yeah, like as a journalist, I regard myself as a sports journalist, as a sports photographer. So we're always trying to know the story, who's important, what's important. Like at the weekend, for say Ireland were playing Argentina, you had new players making their debuts. Yeah. That's going to be used next week in the papers, whether it's Sam Prendergast or Tom Clarkson. So you're always trying to be ahead of the story. Look, some players get more usage than others. Tommy we always would have made sure he got plenty of pictures of Tommy when he was playing. You know what I mean?
Oh no!
He was always going to be.
There he is, getting injured.
Tommy.
My last day playing for Ireland.
Was that your last?
I remember that picture really vividly, and I remember the expression on your face. And I know it was a sad moment for you, but it was like I can only imagine what was going through your head. And when a picture can tell 1,000 words or whatever, that's kind of...
It does, because I think it was me coming off on the trolley. I'd been on the pitch for 13 seconds and I broke my leg, but I just had to smile because if you didn't laugh, you'd cry. And that was exactly the way I was feeling that time.
It's amazing, but and we're going to get onto the other pictures now, but just very quickly, for someone like that photo of Johnny Sexton and Ronan O'Gara, right? Iconic photo. It summed up a relationship that we've all watched play out in the pitch for so long. Would Ronan ever be ringing you up going, dude, why'd you take that photo? Because it is kind of, he was being usurped by Johnny Sexton.
And we do have relationships with the photographers.
Of course.
You do, yeah. And like, say, Connacht is an example. I do a lot of stuff with Connacht Rugby, but if someone high tackles someone, I have to send in that picture. That's my job, as a journalist, Just please don't do it in front of me. or maybe I'll miss it.
But. We want to talk to us about the supermoon picture, because that was your first viral picture, the hurler with the supermoon.
Yeah.
Where did that idea come from?
I remember sitting in a pub about 10 years ago and thinking it would be a great idea to do a hurler silhouette against the moon. It's a very Irish thing. And the picture was about 3 or 4 weeks into COVID. And there was nothing happening. I hadn't done a job in 3 weeks. And I remember the news, like everyone on the news, it was kind of slow news. So the super moon became a big story for a few days. So I said, okay, great. Look, I think this is the time to do it. And look, so much luck came into that picture. We needed a clear sky in March, you know, at sunset. Doesn't happen all the time. We needed the right hill. We needed to do me and my friend Colin Hogg done the maths behind where, he done the maths, I didn't, about where we'd need to be. That's my twin brother, David, on the hill. Never hurled in his life, but...
And so much goes into it, and it was a moment of beauty, and we all just loved it. It's so iconic. Amazing. And that was during COVID. Sports was over, and you turned your attention and captured some of the most beautiful things in the entire world. And this is your new book. It's called Murmurations. And we've got some of the pictures in studio here that have them in themselves become iconic. Tell us about capturing these gorgeous starlings.
So again, as that C word we'll talk about was kicking in, life was fairly, sport was very quiet. And again, my friend Colin, who we done the Hurler in the Moon with, suggested that we go down and take a look at the starlings in Lough. I never heard of the word murmurations 4 years ago, and now I have a book with the title. So yeah, it just became, for me and him, it became a place to go and have a chat and, you know, to chill out in the evenings. And little did I know after that first night that 300 nights later.
Explain a bit more to me about murmurations. Like, is this something that has happened every year? Did you hear about the story? And what is so special and iconic about it? Because this has had worldwide attention, like CNN, National Geographic, you name it.
That picture there and
have taken these pictures.
Well, that picture in particular went crazy. That was taken at about night 50. What murmurations are? Starlings are a little bird we all have in our bird feeders, and in big numbers sometimes. So they basically come together in the winter at night time to what it's murmuration is what they call it. They murmur when they get together, and it happens all over Ireland. But Lough is the one place I particularly spent so many nights at, but it happens like in Wexford, Kilkenny. If you just get to know where it is and go.
Unfortunately, it's decreasing because of wetlands. They're not as many as there used to be.
They're an amber listed bird. Amazingly, when you look at the pictures, but the numbers are down drastically since the 50s or 60s.
The reflections and the lighting and the days and nights and hours spent waiting for that perfect shot.
I think it was about 300 nights in total, and don't tell my wife, but I'm still popping down to make sure they're still there. But she doesn't know about that.
You're their protector. This is the brand new book, Murmurations. It is absolutely beautiful. It's so stunning. But you're also
an exhibition as well.
So I had an exhibition to go alongside with the book launch, because why would you do just one? And it was in Dublin Castle last week. So it's moved back to the Chimea Gallery in Mullingar, where they're selling the 20 pieces for charity. So the money's going to Offaly Down Syndrome, Westmeath, Longford Down Syndrome, and the North Westmeath Hospice. So hopefully they sell. So if anyone has lots of...
Is there a website or anything?
So the Chimea Gallery is on Facebook and on social media, and Dave down there can help anyone out who wants to buy it.
It's for charity, and can I just say, this book, I think it's going to be in houses all over Christmas. It is absolutely stunning. James Crombie, it has just been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much.
Well done,
it's just so lovely.
We'll
book full of Tommy pictures, no?
We'll see you on the sideline.
Wouldn't sell as much.
That's my next book.
Oh, that's the next book. That's the next book.
Not going to be such a bestseller. Top man, James.
Back with you in just a minute on Ireland AM.
Now, a reminder of our competition. We've teamed up with Virgin Media Broadband to give away a 4K smart TV, an Xbox and a Samsung Galaxy phone every day this week. So we've had 2 lucky winners already.
So to be with the chance to win, all you got to do is tell us about your best or worst gifts, whether you were the gifter or giftee. Here are some of your entries so far this morning.
Ray in Wicklow, I worked for a guy and run up to Christmas was always busy, so I had spent the 6 weeks before Christmas starting at 5 a.m. until late. So as a thank you from him on Christmas Eve was a coupon for an off-road adventure. Problem was, it was a month out of date when he said, I'm sure it'll be okay.
That'll be grand. Don't be worried. Don't worry, and they'll give that to you. Carol said...
You'd be like, you cheapskate.
Oh,
my God.
Carol, now if you think cheapskate, listen to this. Carol, I received from my now ex-boyfriend a mop for Christmas. He didn't even go out and buy it for me. He was with me when I said, oh God, I need a new mop. And he said, I'll pay for that at the till. As he paid for it, he handed it to me and he says, that's your Christmas present sorted. and that's why it's an ex-boyfriend now, I'll imagine. Imagine saying that's your granddad, that's your Christmas present sorted. There's a mop.
There you go.
And look at you, because she wanted it.
Leona says, the funniest Christmas present I received was a present. I had given it to my mother the previous year. She forgot. She gave it back to me and she even left the little gift card attached that said, to Ma'am, Merry Christmas, love, Leona.
Oh, I love it.
Leona, high five. I've been there, girl.
Well
I have
done.
been there, girl.
Share your story along with your name and address to IrelandM at comp@virginmedia.ie. We're going to announce the winner in about half an hour or so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, get those entries in and you could be in with a chance of winning amazing prizes.
Yeah, you certainly do. We were chatting earlier on about the latest, all the party manifestos are out now. Every political party has launched them. And we were wondering, are you paying attention?
care?
Elizabeth said, well, I might read the leaflets or talk to party representatives if I actually saw one. I live in a part of Santry in Dublin that has been switched to Fingal West constituency. We seem to be lumped in with Swords, Rush, Balbriggan, Skerries, and we have been entirely forgotten. That's certainly what I feel. Hasn't seen a politician.
Yeah, all manifestos are never fully followed through. I've been every political leaflet that comes through the door without even reading it. Living in Clare for 38 years, no politician has ever called to my door.
Wow. And we also were talking this morning about increased reports of shouting and screaming coming from adults and parents at children's sports matches. And Miriam says, my son has given up refereeing as a result of abuse from parents on the sideline when he was refereeing GAA children's matches.
Sad.
Kids
Harry,
matches.
most adults are trying to relive their own childhoods through their kids' sports and pushing their kids too hard. A lot of messages on this.
And just quickly, it's the same thing. Just Thomas says, as chairman of an amateur football club, I fear for the future of sports in this country. Every year coaches are dropping out because of the grief they get from parents. It's become an impossible job. The enjoyment as a coach is gone.
Sad, isn't it?
Wow.
Very, very,
Thank
very
you
sad.
for getting in touch. Some amazing
appreciate
texts
it.
this morning.
Yeah, now after the break, Catherine Layden is here to put a spotlight on the lung condition COPD.
I will see you back here very shortly.
You're very welcome back to Ireland AM. Now, 6 years ago, our very own Catherine Layden here was diagnosed with COPD, a chronic lung condition. And she's here this morning to talk about it. And we're also joined by Dr. Stanley Miller, a consultant respiratory physician. Good morning to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Stanley, can I start with you and tell us what is COPD?
COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and today is World COPD Day. What people will be familiar with are the terms emphysema, which affects the air sacs or the endings of the airways, and chronic bronchitis. So COPD is an umbrella term for both of those. And what happens when someone has COPD? They can breathe in reasonably well, but what they have a little bit of difficulty doing is breathing out. There's three things happening in the lungs. One is the airways, or the tubes, are tightening, a thing we call bronchoconstriction. And in the same way as if you have a rash on your skin, it's red, raw, inflamed. Imagine that on the lining of the tubes in your lungs, and your lungs produce more secretions or more sputum. So about 10% of people over the age of 50 have COPD, and you'll be surprised perhaps to hear that 50% over the age of 70. There's an estimated 380,000 people in Ireland with COPD, but only 110,000 of those have actually been diagnosed.
And are you saying then the symptoms would be then the chronic, you can feel the breathing is different, is it? So if you're feeling anything, your breathing is changing, you should get it checked, is it?
You should. So the main symptoms will be shortness of breath, particularly when you're walking, cough, and you might cough up some sputum, or you might have a wheeze. It's really important to stay active when you have COPD, because some people might be worried that if they do something they'll become short of breath, so they might start avoiding doing that. And that's almost the worst thing you can do, because if you don't use your muscles, you lose them, and then when you do try and do something, you have to put more effort in, and then you become short of breath. So there can be this vicious cycle. So it's really important to stay active to avoid that vicious cycle.
Now, Catherine, you're shaking your head there, because when when were you diagnosed and why were you diagnosed? What were the symptoms for you?
About 7 years ago. Now, at that stage, I had stopped smoking? I had, thanks to TV3 Ireland AM, I gave up the cigarettes here. And but my heart was giving me a bit of trouble. I went to a cardiologist. Anyway, the next thing I found, I was terribly breathless, up and down the stairs, couldn't walk. Merciful hour. And as Stanley just said there, you don't do exercise then because you're afraid. So I gave up. So then the weight piled on, and anyway, I just couldn't. At night I could hear my lungs. So I'd lie down at night, I'd hear my lungs breathing after me. You know, in the bed, I'd be lying down and I'd be breathing, but the lungs would be puffing away behind me, like a few seconds.
Wow.
Yeah, very frightening. So anyway.
So you went to a cardiologist, and that wasn't the thing. He said, no, maybe your lungs.
Respiratory, yeah. So then I had the test done like you had done, and sure enough, Catherine had COVID. And
you had COPD.
Sorry, COPD. COVID, thanks be to God. COVID nearly killed me because I was terrified.
But I just want to talk about that as well, because when you had the COPD, and obviously, and Stanley, this must have been frightening for so many people during COVID if they had this, because the thought, you were terribly worried, weren't you?
I was terrible. The worst of all times, because I was afraid if I got it, I was gone. So I just stayed put, you know.
There was a very interesting thing that happened during COVID, because people like Catherine, because they were scared, they were, cocooning, they were staying away from people. But actually, COPD patients during COVID perhaps didn't do as badly as we thought, and that was because they were cocooning, but also there was probably reduced environmental things, and that pollution, and that was down. So actually people's breathing wasn't perhaps as bad as they thought, but it was really, really important to avoid the COVID during that time.
I didn't realise until the last few weeks actually that there was a COPD support group where they teach you how to breathe, and I've been to one of those classes, and they reckon I will improve if I follow the rules, like doing exercise. But you see, as Stanley said, I just sat in my tail and did nothing because I used to get breathless, didn't do any exercise.
COPD is a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So when you were told you had that, Catherine, what was your reaction to it?
I was very frightened because of this emphysema bit, because I know that's supposed to be a terrible illness, and a few people I did know that died from it. It wasn't a pleasant death. So, but at least now I'm on 3 inhalers, and I'm going to start, as I'm told, to exercise. You swear by exercise, don't you?
I do.
So can I ask you then, when you were diagnosed, what were the treatments then? Was it just an inhaler?
Just an inhaler, yeah. I started off, but now I'm on 3 different inhalers.
Why is that? Is it getting worse?
It must be getting worse. I don't know. Would you know that?
Yeah, remember I was saying there's 3 different things happening in the lungs. So basically, some inhalers help to open up the airways. They're called bronchodilators. Some inhalers have some steroid in to reduce the inflammation. So some patients may be on a few things just to deal with all those things.
And Catherine would be on the 3, then wouldn't you? It wouldn't be like you not to be.
And it's not just about the medications, as Catherine has already said. It's about staying active. And GPs now can refer into a thing called pulmonary rehabilitation, which is a 6 to 8 week course that happens in integrated care hubs, which are popping up around the country. We're trying to bring the care for COPD away from the acute hospitals. So patients learn more about their disease and they do exercise, and that reduces shortness of breath, and it also improves their quality of life. And then Catherine alluded to COPD Support Ireland have patient support and exercise groups, which continues on that good work to keep people active and to maintain the benefits of that programme.
Can we ask about the test that tells you whether you have COPD?
I have the results.
We're laughing at this morning because we have some footage of me trying to do this test, and I just couldn't do the test properly. I know it's actually quite difficult. Do you find that some people have difficulty doing it?
Some people do have difficulty, and we looked at the test results, and we can see clearly without seeing you do the test.
Me trying to catch my breath there. See, I started to panic.
That you had difficulty.
Yeah,
all is not lost. Ideally, when we're diagnosing COPD, we identify the symptoms, and we've talked about those. We identify a risk factor, and in 90% of people, they've smoked sometime in their life, but they may have had an occupational exposure. And then we confirm the diagnosis with that spirometry breathing test. But not everyone can do it. So it's
the spirometry breathing test is you just blow it. But it's a way of doing it. There's a technique. There's a technique in it.
You take a nice big deep breath in, and then you blow out as fast and as hard. It's a forced expiratory maneuver. And we measure the amount that you breathe out in the first second, and then the total amount, and then we can work out a ratio. And if someone has COPD, they have what we call an obstructive pattern spirometry.
Which I had.
No, unfortunately, we weren't able to.
It's inconclusive. It's inconclusive.
So all is not lost. If someone can't do the test, we can still, based on the symptoms and the risk factors, make a clinical diagnosis. But ideally, we like the test to make a very, formal diagnosis.
Because this is World COPD Day. So what are you saying to people that they should be doing then, if they have any kind of symptoms? Or, like, a shortness of breath wouldn't necessarily mean that you have COPD or anything like that.
No, there's other causes of shortness of breath, but particularly if you've been a smoker in the past and you're getting short of breath, maybe you're in your 50s or 60s, it's worthwhile going to your GP, and then your GP will have a chat to you, and then they'll refer you to an integrated care hub or your local hospital for this spirometry breathing test and make the diagnosis.
And hopefully you might be able to do the breathing test, and if you do the breathing test, you get your diagnosis.
And then on top of that, we've talked about exercise, stopping smoking, and it's not just regular cigarettes, it's e-cigarettes. That's really important. Eating healthily.
And no vaping or anything like that.
No vaping. Eating healthily, being overweight or underweight means that you don't do as well with COPD. And then it's really important as well to get your vaccinations, your annual flu vaccine, be up to date with your COVID vaccines, and think about a pneumonia vaccine as well.
Okay,
but stay active. Stay active.
I haven't got my vaccine yet.
We'll organise that for you next. That's the next thing now. And hopefully you'll be back playing golf very soon. Please God.
And what's really important for people to know is that they can look up the COPD Support Ireland website. It's www.copd.ie. We've actually launched today this COPD and Me booklet, which gives all types of information to patients with COPD, including stuff we've talked about today.
Dr. Stanley Miller, thank you so much for coming in, and Catherine, always a pleasure, and thank you so much for sharing your story with that. And now it's time to head to the Virgin Media Newsroom. Here's Hannah.
Now, our next guest is better known as Grumpy Gran 1948 on the gaming platform Twitch. Now, on Twitch, it's another social media website, essentially, where she live streams her games of Fortnite to thousands of followers. People sit there and watch Kat play Fortnite.
And joining us from Scotland is 76-year-old Kat Bowie. Good morning to you, Kat. How are you? Lovely to see you.
Good morning to you. Yes. From a very snowy northeast Scotland, I say good morning to you all.
Well, it's lovely to have you here.
It really is. Kat, tell us how you got into gaming in the first place.
Grandchildren, as a lot of elderly folk get into gaming through them. My grandchildren are now adults, but at the time, so go back 7 years when Fortnite came out, 7 years ago. Prior to that, I'd always played a few games with them. So 7 years ago, Epic put out Fortnite, and I just walked into my grandson's bedroom, saw him playing, which I know now is Fortnite, and that was it. Hooked. 7 years of constant play with it.
Wow. Yeah. And Fortnite, an awful lot of people will know that there was a Fortnite dance and all this kind of stuff. But Fortnite is a game where you get on and you can play other people from around the world, right?
Yes, anywhere in the world you can play. You join the game and you go into what they call a lobby, and it's an island, right? And that is actually 100 people falls off of this bus, and you are competing to get to be a winner. So you can do it in a solo mode, a duo, trio, or a squad mode.
Look at you. So here you are there. Is it it's violent then? Is it? It's a sort of you're shooting people.
No, I'm not. It is not violent. It's competitive. There's no blood. You don't see blood or nothing. But you are competing to eliminate the player. Let's not use the word kill. Let's just use the word eliminate. It's nicer.
Right, okay. You don't say kill, you say eliminated. Okay, very good. Choice wording there.
I know. Yeah. Serial killer's gone. I'm going to use Kat's name.
But Kat, then you start playing it, but when did you start getting involved, or was that from day one where people were watching you? Because we're looking at you there with others watching you as you do it, which is great fun.
No, I played probably just about 3 years on my own, just playing Fortnite, getting accustomed to it and enjoying it, just everything. And then I tried playing in what they call random squads. That's where you don't know anyone, right? You just play the game. And there was a little bit of toxicity involved in that. So I didn't really like it. I like chatting to folk and getting to know folk. And so I ended up actually having to mute them. So there was little point in actually playing with squads. So I decided the best way to get a group of people that I would relate to would be to start streaming. And that was the first reason that I started streaming. Then the second reason was because my grandson said I couldn't start streaming. I wouldn't get anyone to watch me or anyone to follow me. So, of course, I had to prove him wrong, and I did.
And how many are following you now and watching?
Oh, well over 21,000.
21. So 21,000 people are watching you every day. And is it because of what you do? Are you talking through it? Are you getting really emotive while it's all happening?
Oh yeah, right. You start your stream. It's all done through a program called Twitch. So you go on, start your stream. I've got 2 monitors in front of me, one that I play on and one where chat. Chat is just like a form of text, right? That folk come in and you watch your chat there and they're just coming and going. Then I can choose, as I said, whatever mode I want. Solo, duo, trio, or squad to play with. I invite folk in to come in. I make it like friends. Not everybody can come in and play. They've got to go through a verification system that ensures that there isn't any toxicity. Yeah. And it is just, honestly, it's fantastic. If you've never done it, do it. It's so much fun.
It looks like my mother. She's got Bridge on one screen and she's got RIP.ie on the other screen. She's gaming as well. Now, can I ask you there, you did mention, and we talked to so many people about the toxic nature of being online. And you have ensured that this is, because you've got this gaming community now where there are rules, people can be kicked out. But when you first encountered people being toxic, what was it like? What were they saying? What were they doing?
I couldn't really repeat that. I'm sorry. It was as bad as that. It was disgusting sometimes. But remember, you've got the power in your own hands to do something about it. Just walk away from it like I did. I just muted. If I wanted to play with and have the experience as squads, I did it, but I muted them and then just simply resolved the issue myself, and I just walked away from it. And in my community, I've got such a fantastic community now that we protect ourselves and we never respond to toxicity. Never respond.
Fair play to you. And so one of your friends, even in your community now, did this lovely illustration for you. And we have it here. This gorgeous illustration of you. Can we see it there? There it is. Look at this. That's fantastic.
I got that as a gift. They flattered me there.
But Kath, you must be fairly tech savvy. Do you know an awful lot of people? We've got this stereotype of older people asking the grandkids, to fix their mobile phone or, control all day. You're like, if you don't understand something, you just look it up on YouTube.
Oh yes, I never. I don't let anything get the better of me. I just check it out myself, and I can't think of an occasion when I've been stuck yet. I just proceed through it. I've connected all these monitors together. I've also got a PS5, obviously, which is what I like to stream with, but I've also got a computer, so it's all set up. But I stream from a PS5 and a controller. It's just a comfort thing. Yeah, I just like it.
How many hours do you do this a day?
Maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Wow, 4 or 5 hours. But you know what, you're like, Kat, you are an inspiration for maybe people who are elderly and thinking, I can't do that, I can't get involved with that, I wouldn't be tech savvy enough, to just give it a try, because as you're saying, 20,000 people following you, you're all in this lovely community together, and it must be great company for you as well.
It is fantastic. In fact, it's evolved into being, I wouldn't say less interest in Fortnite, but it's veered into the community more than actual Fortnite. So, when I go on, I obviously love the game, and I would play the game by myself as well as the community, but the community is everything for me. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely beautiful. If people are interested in this, you can find Kath. She is on Twitch, of course, at Grumpy Gran, 1948, from a snowy Moray in Scotland this morning.
Yeah.
Kath Bowie, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Lovely.
We're wondering now, does Kath have a little bit of competition?
She might have.
Is that right, Tommy?
Go on, Catherine. What do you reckon? Are we going to give gaming a go?
This is my first time in my life ever playing with these things.
And it's game over.
I was beaten already.
You were beaten. Beaten already. Okay, we'll leave you at it. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Aussie Rules and GAA star Zach Tuohy.
Welcome back now. From a county minor champion to an AFL legend, Zach Tuohy's groundings in Laois GAA have served him well down under.
They sure have. Before we chat to Zach about his career and his new book, let's take a look at some of his Aussie Rules highlights.
Zach Tuohy loves a goal, takes a bounce, loves a goal. Zach Tuohy on the check side. What about that from Zach? Wow. Tuohy got the kick away. He's kicked the goal.
Back to Tuohy. He's capable from here, the Irishman, and Zach Tuohy delivers.
Look the damage he's done. Tuohy, they are lining up.
Tuohy evades Daniel Adale. Left foot snap, a beauty.
Look at that. He did that throughout his whole career. Hello. He loves a goal. Hello, Zach Tuohy. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It is so lovely to talk to you. And we're going to get into your massive AFL career in just a little while. Tommy was there a minute ago going, why didn't you play rugby? Look at you. You're fantastic. But we were chatting earlier on about Conor Nyland. He's just won for the Sports Book Award, himself and Gavin Cooney. He was a tennis player. That could have been you. Did you have a
I was lucky enough, parents put in a tennis court out the back and used to dabble in that a fair bit, but it wasn't long before the net came down and there was goals put at either end of the tennis court and it was a soccer pitch. But
well, Laois football, like what is it like? Was that the only thing available to you at that age? Like, was becoming a Laois footballer, was that the dream, or at a young age? What were your ambitions?
Well, I mean, the ultimate dream was always to be a professional sports person. Now, soccer was kind of the big dream growing up, and that ship sailed. And Gaelic football was clearly what I was best at. So all my eggs kind of went into that basket, and then the opportunity to be AFL player came along.
And did rugby, because professional, like an athlete like yourself, and we're seeing some Gaelic footballers move across to rugby, more so in the women's game, actually. But was it ever on the radar or never really an option?
It never really did, and I'm not quite sure why. I think I happened to be in with a group of lads that love soccer and football, and that's just where I went. But I would love to have tried it. I think it might have suited me, but Conor Nash, who's in the AFL, obviously has background in rugby.
Big time.
Yeah. And you playing county for Laois, you got to do that, which again is kind of a dream of for so many GAA households to kind of get to do that. So that was amazing. But you were tempted to the AFL very lively. You were very young.
Yeah, I actually joined the inter-county scene relatively late. I didn't play under 14s and I might have just got in time for under 16 couple of games. And AFL came knocking, I was 17. It was my second or third year minor. And for me, there wasn't much of a decision, to be honest.
How did that happen? I'm just wondering, because you're thinking, you're really young. It's not like, were they broadcasting them on Tara over there? Like, what was going on? That they're like, listen, there's this lad in Laois that we can take and mould over here in our own likeness before the GAA absolutely ruin him.
I was kind of fortunate. This is... The whole Irish experiment thing had only kind of reignited. Colin Begley from Laois had just gone a few years before, but there wasn't many Irish guys going over, and this was the beginning of it. So they'd sent a scout over to Ireland to watch the minor championship, picked 25 or 30 players from all over Ireland, trialled us in university in Limerick, and from that I just got picked out with Kieran Sheehan from Cork.
A certain Gaelic footballers suit the AFL, because we had Paddy Andrews, a Dublin footballer, on here the start of the week, and I asked him, did you ever get tempted? Because I knew you were coming on. And he said, it wasn't for me. I wasn't the type of player. What is it that fits between a Gaelic footballer and an Aussie Rules player?
Yeah, it's the kind of intrinsic qualities I have. So power and speed is the big one. So you look at Nusheen Mullen, who's not the biggest guy ever, but he's extraordinarily powerful. So guys with a rugby background actually would fit the game really lovely, because you can work on the skills. Everyone thinks the skills are the hardest part in they're unusual and they take time.
But they're just serious
you can adapt
athletes.
Yeah, they have that power and explosivity.
And like if you look, because you said not many before you went over there, because you went over in 2009, but like Jim Steins, like a legendary Aussie rules footballer as well, who I think is a bronze statue down in outside the MCG, isn't it, in Melbourne? You have Satanta O'Halpine, Tyg Kennedy. Like there have been some Irish players who have gone over there, like yourself, who've really set the world alight.
Yeah, those guys were kind of the trailblazers. Jim Steins was the big one, so I obviously knew he was a big name. It's really hard to even explain here just how big Jim Steins' impact was. He had a state funeral when he passed away. I don't know if there's ever been a sports person. I think maybe one before Jim. Tyg obviously won the Premiership. He was the only one for a long time. And I do think there's been a lot of guys go out and come back very quickly. Yeah, there hasn't been that many, I guess, have long careers, but I think that's changing now. There's a handful of guys that could play 200 plus games.
It's amazing, and we've seen like Cora Staunton as well on the women's side of the thing, Sarah Rowe, Sinead McGoldrick, like the women that are going out, it's a huge amount of them, but they can play both. They kind of come back for their Irish season as well. But you went out at a really young age, settled in Australia. What was it like?
It was exciting first. That was kind of the overwhelming feeling, and that covered up a lot of cracks in terms of adjusting to the game.
Yeah.
And it was great, and my trajectory was fairly steadily rising for the first few years, and then there was a couple of lulls that I found really hard to deal with. Becoming a young parent, not having family around, I really struggled with that for 12 months, and then kind of came out the other side and just kind of carried on. But for the most part, I was just lucky with the club I was at and the people I had around.
What would you encourage more players to do it?
I would, yeah. Well, look, I'd encourage them to consider it. Ideally, what I would love is for AFL clubs to approach any young player in Ireland, and the young player says, no, I don't want to go because things are so great here and the players are so well treated. What I don't want is, legislation put in place to stop the AFL approaching anybody, because I don't think that's a decision that should be made by the young players themselves. Because I've had a great career and I'd hate to deprive anyone else.
The GA won't like you saying that. They won't like hearing that. Because they are a protectionist organisation trying to keep the best players here.
Yeah, well, if the players were better looked after, they wouldn't leave.
Absolutely, yeah.
And do you think that's something they have to start looking at? This is a professional game in Australia that is looking for these players, that's willing to go, yeah, we're going to treat you like this, and it's clearly not in the cards to happen here.
Look, yeah, and I don't really know what the answer is, because the GA is not going to turn professional anytime soon. I don't want it to, because you'd lose something really intrinsic to the game if it did. But it's a decision that should be made by the players whether or not they want to pursue a professional career.
You won amazing. You've won the league down over in Australia.
The grand final.
The grand final. You've become iconic because of your moustache and tattoos as well.
It's so good in real life. Like, it's good on the telly, but in real life, it's amazing.
But where did the idea for? Because you've let it go, and you have the beard there as well. Sometimes you shave the beard and just keep the moustache.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always had some kind of facial hair. And then at one point I had the massive beard, like the really big one down here, and just took a notion to shave it off one day. And I was on holiday with friends in New Zealand, and we were out for dinner and just took a notion, and I've stuck with it ever since. But there's no rhyme or reason behind it. I'm afraid to get rid of it now. It's the thing about me people like most, which says a fair bit about my personality as a whole.
You've spoken in the book as well about your father, of course, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, which must have come as an incredible shock, particularly though when you're at the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Was that ever something that made you want to come home? How difficult is it knowing that you're so far away in the middle of a season? It's very difficult for you to get back to be beside, your hero.
Yeah, there was a certain amount of numbness with that news when it arrived. Parkinson's is not a secret disease, but I don't know if I really understood what it was. And Daddy did what he always did, which was kind of played it down and swept it under the carpet and sort of allowed me as best I could to try and focus on playing. But the older you get, you become a parent yourself, all these things factor in, and there's a certain amount of guilt not being around to help out, because I don't think it's been super easy for anyone in the family really to deal with, but he does what he always does, which is plough on. Plough on. And there's so much in this book.
That's huge.
It's really good, especially the memories of winning the grand final in 2020, because that is such an iconic thing to do. Huge congratulations.
I just loved the bit as well at the end, because you have retired and you just said about Jamie Carragher talking about leave football before the football leaves you, and I think you absolutely did that. Congratulations, Zach.
Zach Tuohy, the Irish experiment from GA to the AFL. Lovely having you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Zach's book.
Over to you, Alan.
Thanks very much. Now, earlier we asked for your best or worst gift stories to win a Whopper prize thanks to Virgin Media Broadband. And today's winner is Lorraine Breen from Rathangan in Kildare. Lorraine said, my husband has gifted me a few bad presents over the year. Once he gave me perfume that turned out to be a men's aftershave. Tommy, you're in there now. The next year, he bought me an ornament for our new display unit, but it turned out to be a grave statue. Still put it up, though. Sure, it's the thought that counts.
It's the thought
Tune in tomorrow for another chance to win that great prize.
Congratulations. You've won a television, an Xbox
Yeah.
and a new mobile phone.
Yeah, congratulations.
For that story. Well done.
Now, on tomorrow's show, we continue our general election coverage, which Social Democrats leader Holly Kearns will be
As
joining
Wicked
us.
casts its spell on cinema goers this weekend, we'll find out if it's worth the blockbuster buzz.
And we're going to make a Michelin star meal with Chef Mark Moriarty. There you go.
There we
We
go.
do that every day.
Look at me, I look tiny between the two of you.
Little baby making his communion.
Have a great day. We'll see you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Liz.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
That's done.